When Stan Lee and Jack Kirby introduced the world to the Fantastic Four in 1961, they weren't just changing the trajectory of Marvel Comics, they were transforming the landscape of popular culture forever. In one fell swoop, they dragged Marvel into the Silver Age of comics and set the stage for the most successful and celebrated fictional universe in entertainment. Without Marvel's first family, entertainment as we know it simply wouldn't look the same. So perhaps it's fitting then that Marvel Studios is now betting the farm on their success. I feel like I have to say this every time I do an MCU video, but Marvel Studios has been in a bit of a rough patch of late. Whether or not you like the films and TV shows they're putting out, it's hard to deny they've lost quite a bit of prestige since the culmination of the Infinity Saga in 2019. They've always had their critics, but for the first time since the release of the Avengers in 2012, it feels like the faithless outnumber the faithful. Time was you could count on even the most mediocre of Marvel film getting a mostly positive reception, but now even their legitimately good stuff struggles to earn widespread acclaim. So with the release of the Fantastic Four First Steps, there's a palpable sense that Marvel Studios is looking to reverse their fortune and recapture a bit of that lost magic by using their first family as a way to launch their cinematic universe into its own Silver Age, the way their comic book counterparts did for Marvel Comics some 60 plus years ago. But while incorporating the Fantastic Four into the Marvel Cinematic Universe may constitute bringing out the big guns for Marvel Studios, it's anything but a sure bet. For as popular as the team has been in the comics, they haven't exactly had the greatest track record on screen. Look, I love the Tim Story movies. Yeah, I get it. I'm that guy. But I'd be kidding myself if I said they truly did the team the justice they deserve. Thankfully, Matt Shakman and the 6 writers attached to the film seem to be doing exactly that. I'll be honest, I didn't realize there were 6 credited writers on this project before making this video, and that tidbit terrifies me a little. But so far, the results are speaking for themselves. Building on his work directing all 9 episodes of WandaVision, Shakman seems to be giving us the retro-future Fantastic Four we've always dreamed of. We've known for a while that this film is going to be a period piece, but Jesus H. Christ, this is more than I could have even hoped for. The production design on display throughout the trailer is genuinely awe-inspiring. Everything from the impeccably appointed sets to the costumes adheres to a strict space age meets mid-century modern aesthetic that is undeniably beautiful. Ever since The Incredibles basically gave us the Fantastic Four by way of Ken Adam, I've been craving a live-action superhero movie with this exact look and feel, and by all accounts, they've absolutely nailed it here. In truth, it's Peyton Reed we should be thanking for that decision, seeing as it's been his white whale for decades now, but Shakman appears to have realized that dream as if it were his own. It's flawless. I mean, it goes without saying, but this cast is fucking incredible. It's perfect casting. I mean, everyone kind of had their, concerns about Pedro Pascal. Like, is he really Reed Richards? But I like what I'm seeing so far. Johnny, Joseph Quinn is great in that role. I can see why they went with someone like him. I can't really judge the performance just yet. Eben Moss Bachrach from The Bear is just fucking genius casting. And speaking of Ben Grimm and The Thing, the look of The Thing is actually fantastic. It looks so good. It was something that I was super concerned about because it's not the easiest thing to translate to screen, as we've seen. But this looks like it's an Alex Ross illustration. It's genuinely incredible how they're making this work and blending it so seamlessly into everything else that's going on. But I have to say, the performance and the character that wowed me was Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm. Everything from her monologue to her presence to the way that they showed her powers, like, oh, thank fucking God they're showing her as being able to manipulate light like she's not truly invisible. It's really cool that they nailed the look of her power set so perfectly, but Vanessa Kirby gets Sue. Again, I like Jessica Alba as Sue Storm. I think she's fine in those films, but we have never gotten a truly compelling and interesting Sue Storm, and it looks like that is what Vanessa Kirby is bringing to the table here. I feel the emotion in what she's saying. I feel the chemistry and the connection between her and Reed. You really feel like these are two people who love one another, and I think Vanessa Kirby, she's gonna be that performance where people are like, that's Sue Storm. No one else could have played Sue Storm except for Vanessa Kirby. And you know what else is flawless? Michael Giacchino's score, the theme for the Fantastic Four. I mean, it is monumental. I mean, he's basically done what he did with The Batman again, but for Marvel, playing a theme and getting it stuck in everyone's head and having it perfectly represent the character, or in this case, characters, the film is going to explore and that we're going to spend time with, and doing it months before release. The fact that Marvel was willing to do that and have this theme introduce the Fantastic Four for the first time, just like the Batman theme introduced Robert Pattinson's Batman to us for the first time, I mean, that's how you do it, right? That's how you create iconic images, iconic moments, iconic themes, and iconic interpretations of characters. And what also helps is the fact that the film actually looks tangible in a way Marvel films haven't since Phase 1. While I don't doubt CGI played a big part in rendering this retro-future Fantasia, there's a tactile quality to the sets and the costumes. Like, look at it! It's, you know, it just brings back the old adage, right? That sometimes the simplest ideas are the best. No more over-designed costumes and all that bullshit. Like, this is perfect. This is exactly what the Fantastic Four should look like. The film is also gorgeously photographed. There's actual contrast in the color grade for once, and each composition is infused with a warm glow, the kind you traditionally get with film. Allegedly, Shackman and his go-to cinematographer Jess Hall opted to shoot the 4x3 scenes on film, which, if true, should be fucking applauded because that is unheard of for Marvel. I mean, at least since Phase 1. I have no idea if that is true. That's something that I've seen rumored around online, and God, I want it to be true. I want it to be true so bad. But the fact that they were able to make this film look like it was shot on film is quite impressive. The finished product is a visual palette that perfectly captures the feelings of nostalgia we collectively feel for the 1960s, a feeling that heightens the utopian vibe of this retro-future fantasy Galactus threatens to destroy. And oh boy, let's just talk about Galactus for a second, because fuck, he looks great. He's not a cloud. He's comic accurate Galactus, and it's gonna rule. This movie is everything that comic book fans love. It's everything we love about the medium, the heightened elements of it, the sci-fi quality. It's unafraid of being a comic book movie. It's fully embracing it. That's something that I got in the James Gunn Superman movie trailer, and that's something that I'm getting to equal degree in this trailer. But let's go back to the 1960s. It really is the perfect setting for this story. Not only was it the genesis of the titular team at the heart of the film and wider Marvel universe they helped launch, but it was a decade of radical change. At their core, the Fantastic Four has always been a product of these turbulent times, an avatar for the American nuclear family, upended by the dawn of the atomic age and forced to grapple with their place in a new world. Sue, Reed, Johnny, and Ben go from being the kinds of people American society has traditionally been built around to proverbial outsiders, and as a result, they're faced with a choice: cling to the life they once had and be miserable because it can never come back, or lean into this new life and fight to make the world a better place for every outsider. Based on what little we get in this teaser, this exact struggle seems to be the crux of the drama in First Steps, with the very first glimpse we get of Reed and Sue being the pair attempting to mask their otherness while welcoming a guest into their home, playing up the normality of their lives. It's clear just from their body language and the tone of their voices, not to mention the lack of emphasis given to their powers, that Reed and Sue are attempting to present the Fantastic Four as being just like anyone else, the embodiment of the conformity that defined mid-century Americana. This is compounded by a later exchange in which Reed laments the fact that things indeed have changed for the group. They are no longer the people they were before going into space and gaining their powers. This moment confirms that the earlier display of glossy mid-century Americana was little more than a performance, and I think Sue's response gives us a glimpse into what the arc of this story might be.
Ben has always been a rock. Johnny is Johnny, and I am right here, whatever life throws at us.
Despite everything that has changed, they're still who they've always been. First Steps is probably going to be a story about confronting self-doubt and finding a way to accept who one is. I could be completely wrong about that, but it would certainly conform with the kinds of stories the Fantastic Four has been used to tell throughout their long history. In fact, it's kind of hard not to look at the comics and make assumptions about what the film will be, given just how comic accurate it appears to be. First Steps feels like as straight down the line of an adaptation as Marvel Studios has ever attempted, which isn't to say they've ever been one to stray too far from their source material, but where other entries feel like an amalgamation of different influences and small adaptational changes, First Steps looks to be original flavor Fantastic Four with no extra frills. This is the Fantastic Four we have wanted to see our entire life, and is going to embrace every single fucking element of it. This fidelity pandering is no doubt in reaction to the string of perceived failures they've had of late, a desperate plea from a studio that has accidentally burnt a whole lot of bridges recently. Look, we're giving you exactly what you wanted, nothing more and nothing less. Please like us again, oh please. But maybe that's exactly what the MCU needs right now. I'm a strong proponent of the phrase, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And that's absolutely the case with the Fantastic Four. I don't doubt Shackman and his 6 writers will put their own stamp on Marvel's first family, but there's an elegance to bringing what worked so fantastically about those original Lee Kirby stories to the screen unaltered. Sometimes the way out of a rut is to go back to basics, and this appears to be their first steps towards doing exactly that. If this is a film about the Fantastic Four learning to love themselves again, there's a certain poetry in the film marking an effort by Marvel to accept its failures, accept its new place in a changing cinematic landscape, and learn to love itself for what it is. It's hackneyed to say, but sometimes you really do have to go backwards to move forwards. And I'd be lying if I said this change in approach wasn't already working on me. For the first time since Phase 1, I truly feel as if a Marvel film could go anywhere and be anything. Sure, the fact that the film's retro-future alternate timeline setting has definitely helped create that feeling of boundlessness, but it honestly has more to do with something trickier to articulate. For the first time in a while, an MCU movie doesn't feel perfunctory. Is it going to set up 5 other films and 7 new and important characters? Yeah, probably, but it doesn't feel like that's the main reason it's being made. And that makes all the difference. Marvel isn't scraping the bottom of the barrel in a desperate bid to flesh out their roster the way they were in Phase 4. No, they're adapting material they clearly care about again. I mean, just look at all the pomp and circumstance surrounding the trailer drop, surrounding the marketing of this film, from the score to the thoughtfulness that went into making this a period piece to the casting. Like, this was a big deal. And so I love the fact that this whole film, the whole adaptation of the Fantastic Four, was conceived with all of that in mind, with that respect and reverence and excitement. I mean, it feels like the first time Marvel is excited to bring characters to the big screen again. It feels as though everyone involved in making this film would be making it regardless of its place in a wider franchise. It wasn't greenlit to get us from point A to point B in a 5-year master plan. It was greenlit because there was a desire to see an adaptation of the Fantastic Four that realized their potential. You can tell me Kang is the biggest, most important character in all of comics till you're blue in the face. It isn't going to make him feel significant, especially if it's abundantly clear that everyone involved doesn't actually believe it. You can't fake your way into generating that kind of hype. But Fantastic Four? Nah, that feels monumental without even trying, because the enthusiasm from the creative team is so self-evident. And that enthusiasm makes the film's potential feel limitless. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I know what the fuck Red Ghost, or at least that's what we're speculating that John Malkovich's character is, but, you know, I don't know what he's going to be getting up to in this film, but I'm compelled to speculate because I know he's probably in there for a reason that goes beyond merely filling a space in the script or setting up a future storyline. Maybe he's a cosmonaut who was booted from the team's initial space mission due to his ties to the Soviet Union, only to be recruited into a Russian operation to create the Soviet version of the Fantastic Four because they fear the American-based foursome will favor their own side of the Cold War in a crisis. and maybe that mission is spurred by the sudden appearance of Galactus. Or perhaps he really was a spy and got booted for attempting to make off with research. I have no clue, and if it looked like just another standard Marvel film, I probably wouldn't give a shit either, but because everyone seems to give a shit about the material they're adapting, my mind is buzzing with theories. In a similar vein, what's the team's relationship with the public going to be like? Is there apparent desire to present as a conventional American family driven by a public who is more interested in gawking at the team than recognizing their humanity? Or is that crisis of identity self-imposed? Visual allusions to A Hard Day's Night suggests the team's celebrity is meant to parallel Beatlemania, so it's not entirely unreasonable to assume it could be contributing to the family's self-perception. Not to mention the fact it would mirror the anxieties Shackman and Marvel Studios have likely been working through given the immense anticipation surrounding this project. Like the Fantastic Four, this film is up against intense scrutiny. This time, failure to connect with audiences will mean a lot more than just box office disappointment. It could very well be the death knell of the MCU experiment. I'm willing to bet that pressure has lingered over every aspect of this production, so I wouldn't be shocked if some of it made its way into the story, either consciously or subconsciously. Or, hey, you know what? Maybe those references to the Beatles are just the payoff to a joke set up by Doctor Strange in Multiverse of Madness.
Hello, Stephen.
Fantastic Four. Didn't you guys chart in the 60s?
I'm sorry, is this a joke to you?
Masters of the retcon they are. Maybe likening the Fantastic Four to the world's most famous band is Marvel's way of making sense of the joke that first teased the first family. A retroactive attempt to make it seem like, this was the plan all along. To their credit, that's something Marvel has always been extremely good at. Whatever the case, I'm genuinely psyched to find out. Longtime viewers will know I'm rarely this positive about a Marvel project, but sometimes you've got to call a spade, and good God, does this look like a straight flush. It might only be the Fantastic Four's first steps into the MCU, but for the first time in a long time, I'm optimistic it could be the giant leap forward Marvel has been searching for.